Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. I am out of town this week, and so I am very glad to be hosting Alex Amorosi and Alexander Transtrom, both Nightlight alumni, both fantastic astrologers who are stepping in for me and doing content this week. Today, Alex is going to be sharing a talk on the energies of the spring equinox. This is really the symbolism of zero Aries, so this could be applicable whether you're in the northern or southern hemisphere. But he's going to be giving a talk on that. I hope you also enjoyed the talk he gave yesterday on Mercury in Aries, its retrograde, its conjunctions with Chiron. Really fascinating talk. Alex is the guy that you have seen doing monthly horoscopes with me before, if that name doesn't ring a bell. So, and he will tell you more about himself, and if you like his work, where you can check out more about him in today's episode. In the meantime, before we get into it, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe, share your comments and reflections. Love to hear from you guys today. You can find a transcript of any of the daily talks on the website, nightlightastrology.com. I am in the midst of promoting just a couple of things that I want to point you to. The first is our speaker series. At the end of this month of March, if you're not already aware of the fact that we have a quarterly speaker series that is absolutely free to the public, you can check that out. If you go to nightlightastrology.com and click on the events page and go to the speaker series, you will find the register now links for these talks. Dan Waits is giving a talk on March 24th on Pluto and Aquarius. Jolly Knot is giving a talk on March 30th on the Lot of Fortune, which is an ancient part of the chart that's really fascinating. So those talks are free. If you go to the events tab and you click on live talks, you will see my monthly webinars, which you can register for. Uranus in Love is coming up in April. We've already gone through Neptune and Pluto in Love. You can buy those talks in the shop under the shop tab right there. Just click that and you could purchase those if you want to hear the replays. Otherwise, when you register for the Uranus in Love talk, you will get a link to attend live on April 18th from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. If you can't make it live, you'll get a link to the recording. The final thing to mention here is the first year course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, which begins June 16th. I will be promoting that course in more depth and detail soon, but you can always check it out and register early if you want. There's an early bird registration. There's also payment plan and need-based tuition. If you'd like a little bit of help to make it happen, please feel free to use that. The other thing I'm promoting, as you guys know, is my wife Ashley's herbal program. Her Herbal Foundation's apprenticeship program is back after a few years of being off. She's revamped the program. Under the courses tab, you click on Herbal Foundation's apprenticeship. You can scroll down to learn more about it. And after today's video, if you stick around, there is an interview that I've tagged on to the end of the content today with Ashley, going into greater depth about her work and the program. You can also learn more about her work at skyhouseherbs.com or YouTube Skyhouse Herbs, where she shares monthly or weekly videos on herbal medicine, and Instagram Skyhouse Herbs. If you're interested in plant spirit medicine, this is a great course, and you'll hear me talking about it with her after today's content. In the meantime, I hope you will enjoy Alex's exploration of the spring equinox, or the zero Aries moment that we are crossing through this week. All right, that's it. Enjoy.
Hey everybody, this is Alex Amorosi. I'm in today for Adam Elenbaas, who is on vacation. Some of you may know me from doing the monthly horoscopes with Adam, and I did some of the Kickstarter work. If you did got some stuff through his Kickstarter, I also did some of the videos with him for that as well. I am flying solo today with the keys to the car sitting on the anchor desk, and going to take you through some thoughts on the equinox. The equinox always happens when the sun moves into Aries. This is a rockin' Aries season. We're going to talk about it from a more general standpoint today. You're going to see lots of videos on Mercury's retrograde. I'm actually, you'll see in this series of videos I've done while Adam's away. I've done one on Mercury retrograde. I'm doing this one on the equinox, and I also have done one on Venus and Saturn conjuncting in Pisces. But we're going to look today more at sort of general thoughts about the equinox, what it is, what it means, and some signatures, some sort of stamps that we can see archetypally as the sun moves into Aries and we move into the solar part of the year. So before we get into it, time-honored traditions at Nightlight Astrology, what do we always say? Tap the like button. I don't know what the appropriate thing is. I guess there's like a thing about the like button. Do whatever you would like with the like button. It's your business. And subscribe. It helps Adam's channel to grow. If you would like information on Adam's readings and courses and classes, they're phenomenal. I have had many readings with Adam and done a few of his courses. They're all wonderful. You can go to nightlightastrology.com if you're interested in Adam's wife, Ashley's. That's a really hard 3 words to say. Adam's wife, Ashley's herbal apprenticeship. She's a fabulous herbalist. I think that's beginning in April. You can go to skyhouseherbs.com. If you would like information on me, you can go to alexamorosi.com. You can get information on all my services there. You can learn a little bit more about me. I am a yoga teacher, a Reiki teacher and practitioner, energy work practitioner, and Intuit, in addition to being an astrologer. You can get information on all my services there. One of my most popular services is combining an astrology reading with an intuitive reading. I just call it a hybrid intuitive astrology reading. And we kind of bounce back and forth between my hits and your chart, and we kind of do some really interesting and fun detective work in those readings. But you'll see I have just plain astrology readings and plain intuitive readings there too. So without further ado, let's get into the equinox. Let me pull up the chart. And I said it because I have 3 planets in Virgo. Zero, just as the sun precisely enters Aries at 00 of Aries. All right. So the March equinox for us here in the northern hemisphere, the spring equinox for those of you in the southern hemisphere, the autumn equinox, happens every year when the sun moves out of Pisces and into Aries. What this represented, now remember, we're looking at the zodiac, the tropical zodiac, from a sort of archetypal symbolic point of view of the light cycle in the northern hemisphere. When the sun moves into Aries and we have that day of equal dark and light, now the sun, the light, is becoming ascendant. So Saturn is exalted in Libra, right? And the sun is exalted in Aries. Saturn rules the dark half of the year, the yin part of the year, the reflective part of the year, the resting part of the year, the cold part of the year, and again, in symbolism of the northern hemisphere. The sun rules the active, hot, yang part of the year, the solar part of the year, the part of the year where there's more action and growth and expansion. And especially, we're starting to see up here in New England, on the east coast of the US, you're just barely starting to see and kind of feel spring in the air right now, as I'm recording this in early March. So that movement of the sun into its exaltation in Aries, I often think of it. I don't know if any of you have ever heard Maurice Ravel's ballet Daphnis and Chloe, but there's this in the second. I remember playing it as a clarinet player and wanting to. It's murderously difficult to play, but it's absolutely beautiful music. And there's a part of it that is kind of builds to this magnificent, crashing, huge chord in the second suite of the ballet. And it has that feeling of like there's an exalted exuberance. Now the light is here, the sun is shining. There's a huge chord that comes in and just makes itself known. The organ starts to play, right? And there's that sort of feeling. The equinox also, some people would say that this puts sort of a stamp on the next 6 months. What are we looking for now from mid-March to mid-September? You could think of that. I tend to think of the equinox more as a point of reflection, and also kind of looking at like the upcoming Aries season. What's coming up for us? And there's a little bit coming up. Not all bad stuff. I don't mean to sound like, hyperbolic about it, or, get a news cycle like there's a lot coming up and we should all be terribly worried. Like, not really like that. But there are a lot of complex things going on in this Aries season. And I think it's really an important time where we start to see how we're going to expand, how we're going to shine, how we're going to become more prominent, or the places where we feel challenged with that. And then what's going to become prominent over the course of the next month or so. And really, I would say moving up all the way to the solstice. So, as you get to mid-June, when the sun moves from Gemini into Cancer. So there's a couple things to notice here. Now, again, I use asteroids, Black Moon, Lilith, and Chiron. I invite you into the world of the asteroids, Black Moon, Lilith, and Chiron. we're really just going to talk about Chiron today because Chiron, I'm not going to talk about all the other asteroids. Chiron factors very, very strongly into this Aries season for several reasons. Um, Chiron is exactly conjunct the solar eclipse that is coming up on April 8th. And I mean exactly conjunct, 1924 Aries. That's extremely rare. To have an event like that where two celestial bodies are exactly conjunct to the minute is rare enough, but to have the sun, moon, and Chiron all exactly conjunct on an eclipse, that's pretty rare. So we're going to look today at some of the meanings that I've come to understand about Chiron. We'll look a little bit at Mercury because you notice that Mercury, when the sun moves into Aries, Mercury is moving into a conjunction with Chiron, and we'll make 3 conjunctions with Chiron during its retrograde cycle in Aries over April. And we'll talk a little bit about the North Node too, because the North Node is really prominently featured in here in Aries. But one thing I want to point out first is that we begin the equinox with Mars, the ruler of Aries, just at the tail end of Aquarius. Mars is still under the auspices of Saturn in Saturn's sign. So while we might have what feels like, the exuberant Aries, big, you guys ever see the movie Best in Show and the gay couple that's in it? There's the one guy in the couple, and he says, he's like, on the marquee, big letters, us. That's the feeling of Aries, right? Big. And the moon is in Leo right now, the sun's sign, and there's a beautiful trine between the sun and the moon. There's a sort of prominent, big, open, theatrical feeling, big splash to this opening in Aries. But it has a sort of cerebral, distant, questioning, skeptical quality ruled from Aquarius, which I think is really interesting because in an Aries season that can feel, if we talk about the next 3 months, Aries season through Gemini season up to the solstice, this could have a very fast-paced, moving, explosive, not always a bad way explosive, but explosive, inceptual quality, especially with 0 Aries. There's an inception. There's a feeling like kind of like the Big Bang, like a massive shift or change in prominence. Mars ruling the entrance of the sun into Aries from the end of Aquarius is really interesting because Mars in Aquarius is a little more intellectually detached and a little bit more cerebral and a little strategic. I was going to say strategic. It's not really quite the right word. Mars in Aquarius is a little bit more um, looking at how the pieces all go together. So I think that that's actually a great ally for us as we're working through all these planets in Aries. Is very, very powerful cardinal quality in Aries. There's the fixed quality. It's ruled from a fixed air sign. There's a sense where if things feel like they're really going fast, let me step back. Let me look at it from a more detached perspective. Let me make sure that anything I'm angling to do here is in line with my higher ideals and values, which are very, very important to the sign of Aquarius. That's a really interesting feature of the rulership of this. And remember, the sun is also the exaltation ruler of Aries, so the sun is in also a very powerful position here. I think it's actually kind of nice to have Mars in a little bit more of a cooler. This is a more cool customer Mars in Aquarius and moving into Pisces, which is a different story, but still a little bit more of a muted quality. Mars will move into Aries, I believe, at the beginning of May. I think that's the beginning of May, and I'm sure Adam's going to make a ton of videos on that. That's a really interesting transit of Mars through Aries too. Okay, so what else we have? Venus coming into a conjunction with Saturn. You will see the video that I made on 5 misconceptions about Venus and Saturn together, because there are many misconceptions about Saturn, which is interesting because Saturn would actually rule misconceptions. And we also have Mercury coming into a conjunction with Chiron here at about 18 of Aries. The sun and the moon will be exactly conjunct Chiron at 1924 of Aries during the eclipse. And Mercury is going to make another conjunction with Chiron right after its not the inferior conjunction, right after it's cazimi with the sun during its retrograde cycle. So Chiron factors in really strongly here, Chiron and Aries. I have a very strongly placed Chiron on my chart. It's exactly on my midheaven. Chiron is a really interesting archetype, and I hope that you guys find this interesting because it's usually I wouldn't use it in a talk that I do with for Adam's channel because he just doesn't use these points a lot. But it's so factored into the eclipse and the Mercury retrograde that I thought it would be really cool and interesting to talk about. Chiron, it talks a lot about the wound. We all have at some level a wound that never quite heals, but it turns into what we do with that wound. Um, Maybe it doesn't resolve completely, but if we learn how to use what we learned from it in a way that is generative, helpful, that sort of makes philosophical meaning out of it. That's also a very Chiron idea, and one that imparts the wisdom that we've learned to others. It's a way for us to sort of turn that jewel, turn what has happened, or turn something that could become destructive into something that can be generative. Um, Chiron also can represent where we've been a little too sacrificial. And there's a specific kind of sacrifice that I see with Chiron a lot, where one of the major stories of Chiron in Greek mythology is that when Prometheus takes the fire from the gods, and Zeus punishes him by, pinning him to a cliff and having him pecked at by birds for all of eternity, eternity. Or I don't know how long. I don't know how long Zeus was like, "Hey man, this is what's going to happen for taking the fire." Um, but Chiron feels so deeply drawn into the suffering that Prometheus is experiencing that he asks to take his place. He says, "Please let me, let me at least stand in for him for a little while because I can't bear to watch this. I can't bear to see this." And Chiron sometimes can, when it's strongly placed in a chart, it can indicate sometimes that people take on willingly or unwillingly, consciously or unconsciously, the karmic lessons of somebody else. If we let go of whatever moral philosophical argument we could have about what Zeus did with Prometheus or Prometheus did for the god, leave that aside for a moment. There's a sense with like, where is the limit of what I can do in somebody else's experience, and how am I best of service to them? I actually just recorded the horoscopes for the month with Adam today, and I was talking about, I read a wonderful book. Michael, my partner, bought me The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. A beautiful book. It's the story of Achilles, the Iliad, as told from Patroclus's perspective. And Chiron factors very strongly into that story. They go through a whole period where he's teaching Achilles and Patroclus. He's serving as a sort of father figure, of a guiding figure for these very sort of, impetuous young guys. And I think this is so powerful for the idea of Chiron and Aries, because Aries can represent the sort of zeal and impetuousness of youth, which we've all had. Whether, however we identify as our gender, we've all had that sort of like, yeah, like, let's go. I'm 20 years old. I know everything. I'm an adult. I remember saying that to my mom once, and she tried not to laugh, and very sweetly tried not to laugh. There's that feeling of zeal, and all of us need a mentoring figure who's farther down the highway from us that can help hone and channel that energy. And I feel like this is a season, like, all right, let's call it the next 3 months, where if we can teach from what we've learned, if we can be open to being taught, if we can take the zeal to do something new, to expand, to go forward to, the proverbial new horizons, there's a sense where if we're open to having that refined, if we're open to being taught, if we're open to philosophy and understanding and meaning making around it, beautiful healing can take place. And really a healthy individuation of sense of self, where we don't feel it's all about me, which is definitely, with the sun in Aries trining, as it moves into the equinox point, trining the moon in Leo, the sun's sign, there is definitely feeling in the shadow of this is all about me and only me and everything I do, and I just want to do it, and I don't really care about what anybody else thinks. There's a sense here with Chiron of like the tempering that comes from a wise older figure. There's a little bit of like Jupiter, Saturn, and Chiron, and that tempering can help us realize that we can be healthy, fully formed individuals within a community of individuals, that we also have obligations of relationship. We also have obligations of community and those sorts of ideas, very much highlighted by Mars ruling the entrance of the sun into Aries from Aquarius. Those are all very Aquarian ideas as well. Um, and also, maybe seeing where, and I often say this when I'm seeing transits to someone's natal Chiron, or Chiron making a transit in somebody's chart. We'll talk about, are there places in your life where you feel like you're getting too involved in somebody else's karmic story, where there's certain things they need to experience. You can love them, you can have compassion for them, you can support them. But is there a point where you're starting to take on and get enmeshed with their experience, rather than being able to be in a healthy, stable space within yourself and able to help them from a place of feeling grounded within yourself as well? So those are some things that might come up as well. We also, with Mercury being in the conjunction to Chiron during this, how we're talking, how we're communicating, how we're thinking. Um, are we communicating about the things, this might be something, you could see something like this where someone starts to communicate about something that happened to them in a healing way. Um, some of the most healing stories I've ever heard have been those that people have imparted to me from their own experience about the tough thing they went through that was like the tough thing I went through. I remember when I was coming out, there were some older gay men that I knew that were really helpful and instrumental in helping me understand myself and my out identity as a young gay man. This is over 25 years ago now, which kind of blows my mind. But there was a sense where my thought process, my understanding of myself, my identity needed to be honed in some way. It needed guidance from someone down the highway a little bit, someone older, someone more experienced, someone more grounded. That's just one example that comes to mind. Um, Now, we also have the North Node right next to Mercury. The North Node in Aries, that is a pull. That's a gravity well towards, I want to do it, and I want to do it now. And if I have to wait, it sucks. And I'm going to get pissed because I have to wait. The North Node can be wonderful for acquisition of things. The North Node can also create the illusion that once you acquire it, you will be at peace. One of the most profound lessons of Aries is do what is necessary to accomplish the mission of retrieving back to yourself or to others what needs to be retrieved, and know when to stop. Again, you got a cooler customer ruler, you got a cooler Mars here in Aquarius, and a little bit more detached intellectual Mars in Aquarius that can cool that a little bit. But I think that there's something with the North Node in Aries that's really powerful, of just like, that can be a powerful signature of, I'm going back to reclaim things. I'm taking back what's mine. That's a very Aries idea. Um, it's not right that that was taken and I'm taking it back. Those sorts of feelings. It's very important, especially with the lineup that's going to move into Aries, and especially with the eclipse coming up, to know when to stop. I achieved my objective, and that's enough. It can feel like, I often describe Aries and the North Node, the Sun, Mercury here, you can think about like, like if you're having a fight with someone and you've said what you need to say, but you're just hopped up and you're unregulated in the in psychology, you're unregulated, your nervous system is flying off the handle, and you shouldn't say the next thing, like you shouldn't say it, and it flies out of your mouth anyways. That would be the North Node in Aries taking it too far. Knowing that now this has gone beyond achieving an objective or a feeling of fairness, which Aries actually is very concerned with, much like its opposing sign Libra in a different way. And it's gone into being mean, or it's gone into being destructive, or it's gone into being cruel in some way. It's very easy to go on that. So being mindful of communication, definitely with Mercury doing the retrograde in Aries. You'll see a video that I've done on that as well. But just being mindful of, like, in speech and communication, particularly when you're getting hopped up, have just asking yourself the mindfulness question: have I achieved my objective in what I meant to say? And once I have, trying to just leave it at that. It's very easy to get caught up in a back and forth with this type of dynamic. And we still have, we still have Neptune, Saturn, and Venus in Pisces. Nice, cool, imaginative, beautiful, shimmering Pisces. So there is a big splash of me and the self in the sun moving into Aries. There is a big flash of inception, beginning, movement, mission, all these sort of Aries ideas. But there's also a very nostalgic, wistful, collective quality behind the scenes too, with Venus and Saturn there. And I really do see Venus and Saturn in Pisces in a lot of ways of like, okay, so I'm a gay of the 2000s, and I love 2000s Kelly Clarkson. I do. I love her. I just love it. And there was that song she had like that she would, it was always like a, when I was in my early dating life, kind of a breakup song. It was like, I'm already gone. I'm already gone. I'm already gone. That song. Venus and Saturn in Pisces has a little bit of that wistful, uh, like the Tony Braxton song, it's just another sad love song, right? Enough singing, I get it. But there's a there's a wistful feeling, there's a nostalgic feeling, and there's a feeling of to move into these new, bold, big, um, highly charged in a good way. Could be in a shadow way, but let's say let's optimistic Sag, charged in a good way. This beautiful Aries energy. There's also the need to sort of close the chapter on something else. Even if that's, one thing I found is really interesting is with Pisces at the end of the zodiac is sometimes we need to grieve or be nostalgic about just a time in our lives that we've had. And we're moving into really amazing, new, creative, unbelievable things. But there's an honoring of where we came from. There's an honoring of, that point in my life is over. I'm noticing now, and I'm in my mid 40s, that my youth is really over. And I can feel that happening. I can feel a lot of the aspects of my youth, how I used to be, and all for the better. Trust me, trust me, it's all for the better now. But there's a little bit of that sadness of like, oh, that part of my life is over. And it's okay to sort of have that sort of nostalgic moment. But pretty soon Venus will move into Aries, and then that's a whole different story. But once Venus passes this conjunction to Saturn, and that would be in a couple days from now. I think it's March 21st. Venus passes the conjunction to Saturn. There might be a sense of being on the other side of that nostalgia, but maybe the beginning during the equinox of like, it's okay to be a little wistful. It's okay to be a little, okay, it's sad. That's over. All right, so that's my look at the equinox, my friends. I could go on forever and ever about this, but I'm not going to. And we have Jupiter and Uranus coming together too, but trust me, you're going to see so much content on Jupiter and Uranus as we go through that conjunction moving into the end of April when it becomes exact. I wish you all well. I hope this was interesting to talk about today. I hope it was a good look at what I would call like maybe Aries season up to the solstice. The sort of the growing of the light, the sun's growing to its full domain in the symbolic light cycle of the northern hemisphere at the winter solstice. I'm sorry, the summer solstice. The summer solstice here, the winter solstice in the southern hemisphere. I have a friend actually going to Australia tonight, so the southern hemisphere is very much on my mind. Anyways, I hope this was enjoyable, friends. I wish you all well. I wish you a wonderful equinox and any wonderful activities or intentions that you wish to set at that time of the growing of the light. And we'll be back soon.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for sticking around. I'm really happy to be joined by my wife Ashley, who is an herbalist. Hi, Ashley.
Hey.
And yeah, I'm really excited to be helping Ashley promote her upcoming program, which is something that you actually began teaching many years ago, this herbal apprenticeship program. I think it was 2011 or 12 that it got started, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been over 10 years I've been offering this course, and yeah, it's my favorite thing to teach.
Yeah. And just to be clear, because some people on my channel, most people know you because you pop on here or there. We talk about herbs and astrology. There's an attraction in our marriage and an attraction in the subject matter that is old. Like we've been together for 14 years in our relationship going on, and we've always had a fascination with each other's areas of expertise, and we've done lots of things to marry them together over the years, in addition to literally getting married. And and actually, herbalists and astrologers have married the subjects of herbs and planets together for thousands of years as well. Now, your program is focused on, you know, uh, herbalism. It's not an astrology course, but there is certainly a lot of overlap in terms of the energetics and the spiritual approach to herbalism that you take. And so I was hoping that we could start off just by telling people a little bit about the program. You're coming to this after taking a little bit of time on maternity leave. Our kids were not yet in school. Now they are. You're coming back to work. This is really exciting. The new program launches at the end of April. I'm going to put it up on the screen so people can see it. You can find it at skyhouseherbs.com. Enrollment is open now. The course begins. You go under courses, Herbal Foundations Apprenticeship at the end of April. Tell us about it.
Well, this course, I guess my goal in redesigning the apprenticeship course that I've been teaching for 10 years is to make it even more personal and to allow people to study the material, digest it at their own pace. So what it's going to be is a combination of kind of three main parts. The first one is the recorded material. So there's going to be modules that will be released and people can listen to them as they have time. The second part are live classes where we will meet live on Zoom and talk about the module, I'll answer questions, I'll give even more information about it. And then the third part is the sacred plant pairings. And so I've always taught the herbal portion, like the plant diets, one at a time, but this year I'm going to do it in pairs because I think you can learn a lot by comparing and contrasting herbs. So for every module, you'll have 2 herbs to study and you'll get a little cheat sheet about them before you start the module. And then you'll have an opportunity to work with those 2 plants and blend them and keep them separate and just really work with them closely. Because my goal is that I want people to be able to find information that they can really use in their own lives, maybe with clients, whether they have a professional herbal practice or maybe they're a therapist in a different field, that they'll know these plants so that they can work with them really comfortably.
I love the different modules that you have just so we can preview them for people. Module 1 is Vitalism and the Heart of Herbalism. Module 2, Building Your Home Apothecary. They're so diverse. I love Module 3 is my favorite, Plant Spirit Medicine. Energetics and chemistry. You have such a holistic approach. It's what I've always loved about your teaching. You'll teach about the doctrine of signatures. You'll talk to people about how to communicate with plants, how to think of them as teachers that are living beings that have personalities that aren't just, phytochemistry or whatever. But you will also teach phytochemistry. And I think that you have this really well-rounded way of helping people be intelligent about the plants, about the body, about the systems of the body, but also not afraid to use energetic systems, not afraid to take something from the kinds of energetics that ancient mystics were working with, whether that's the elements or whether that's, some of the overlay with things like Ayurveda, Chinese medicine. You take what's useful on a symbolic and energetic plane and on a personal connection level with the plants, and you marry it to really smart scientific research. I think that's rare. You don't see that a lot.
Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, to me, it's all language. They're just different languages that we talk about the same thing. And I think the more diverse our languages as herbalists, the more we can reach more people. And that's kind of my goal. Like, I want everyone to be able to identify plants, use plants. So we need to diversify the languages we speak so we can talk with our physicians, so we can talk with a therapist, we can talk with a mystic, right? We can talk with children, and we have a language that everyone can use.
You talk in the program, in your modules, you have stuff on digestive and gut health. You have stuff on detoxification, colds and flus, and dealing with virus seasons. You talk about tissue states, and you're talking about how to give things to your kids for helping them maybe at times even relax before bed at night. We use a lot of different things with our kids. I love this that you have called this I'm going to find the phrase where you use, and I'm going to mess it up. A community herbalist. What is a community herbalist, so that people can understand that definition? Because sometimes people might look at a course like this and think, gosh, unless I go to an accredited university for 8 years and learn all about chemistry. I have no right or business suggesting herbs to people or using herbs. That's just not true. And that's not the history of how folk herbal medicine has been used or taught. So what do you mean when you say community herbalist?
I think you said it perfectly. This is the people's medicine, and our grandmothers and great grandparents used plants as medicine. There's nothing actually that like hard about the practice of herbal medicine. It's just getting to know the plants and getting to know the times when they're most useful. I really envision that this course, people can take it and yes, use it for themselves. Number one, because I think a lot changes when we have the personal experience, and then using it in your family, whether that's just, maybe making a tea for your dog, or, if you have kids, or maybe you just have a partner, maybe you have plants you can use, and we'll talk about taking care of a garden, but using it for yourself, for whoever's immediately around you, and then taking it beyond that, because it's likely that at some point you're going to be talking with someone. They're going to say, oh, I've got this digestion thing and I've tried this and this. And they might say, hey, you're studying herbs. Is there anything that you would recommend? And you know what? You'll probably have a few ideas. And that, you never know how one way that you help someone out there in the world might trickle and then help others and more people. So I think through the self-knowledge and studying this knowledge in your own body, it'll naturally, it's like, impossible for it not to spread out and start to affect the broader community.
Yeah, I think that's really important. This is also for that reason, because we have a vision. I mean, you guys know through my Kickstarter, you guys helped us build a community herbal medicine garden that Ashley's been hosting free and donation-based events out of, that the donations go right back into the garden and just growing the medicine that we then find ways of harvesting and giving to other people, or letting other people come and harvest. We have a vision, and we always have, back to the days when we had our yoga studio in Maryland. We have always had a vision of making this sacred knowledge accessible to people. And that is both there in this program in terms of the way you're framing what it means to be an herbalist. It might mean that you're a professional and you see clients, and you could continue beyond this program developing the skills to do that. This would certainly set you up for success. You could also go forward and be someone who uses what you know with friends and family and yourself. And that's an incredible set of tools to have. The program's also very accessible from both a programming standpoint and a price standpoint. I'm going to take you back over and show everybody the programs. The modules are pre-recorded, but then you meet outside of the modules for discussion, community, Q&A, and sort of development and integration. So people can attend those live. If they miss those integration sessions, they can also watch the replays of those. So
absolutely, yeah.
Anyone could take this at their own rate, as slowly or as quickly as you wanted to, really soak it in, or blaze through it. And then we can certainly, beyond this program, as Ashley perhaps makes more advanced programs available as she's easing back out of maternity leave, can help you with further development or recommend you to many other wonderful programs where you could continue your studies. We want this to be accessible. We want community herbalism to be, as simple as being able to show a friend a couple of yoga stretches. We should be able to show each other herbs, and just, hey, this is a helpful herb to use. Also, accessibility price-wise, we have an early bird enrollment, and we have standard enrollment. And then we have tuition level 1 assistance and tuition assistance level 2, which break out the affordable tuition into different levels of affordability. And you can kind of identify where you're at if you're someone who wants to take this program but needs to work within your means and not hurt yourself doing it. And then for those who can pay, we ask that you use standard or early bird enrollment. And that's the same thing I do for all my astrology programs. So we try to keep it super, super accessible. The Herbal Apprenticeship program starts April 24th. I know Ashley's super excited to be getting back into teaching too. I also would like to offer Ashley just a chance to tell everyone a little bit about, before we end here this interview, tell everyone maybe a little bit about your own background, who you studied with, what your influences are, and just anything else you want to say before we cap it off.
Ooh, okay. Well, I think, I started off as a kid playing in the woods, mixing perfumes and potions. And then I went on to study environmental science, where I studied organic chemistry and restoring native wetlands. And really, from an environmental perspective, that's how I got into herbalism. And then after, I realized after working on the restoration piece and joining a lot of earth advocacy groups that the problem's not with the earth but with the people not
Mhm.
understanding the value of the earth. So then I started going into holistic medicine. I graduated from University of North Carolina, Asheville, with a degree in interdisciplinary studies. And I went on to get my that was my undergrad, and then I got my master's from the Maryland University of Integrative Health. It was then called Thai Sophia. But my teachers there, I had such a great blend of teachers, really scientific minds, like Simon Mills from the UK and Kevin Spellman, who is like a chemistry genius, who's also an Ayurvedic practitioner, who studied with Dr. Vasant Lad. Uh, Matthew Prisco, medicine maker from Galen's Way out in California. So I had a really wonderful, diverse variety of teachers in that 3-year full-time master's level program. And then after that, I went on to study with Matthew Wood pretty intensively because I liked his energetics. I liked the way he spoke about the plants and his personal experience working with low dose, drop dose medicine. And he has had amazing, you know, uh, he's done such amazing work herbally with just using that method. And gosh, I could I've got a lot of herbalists in my
David
basket.
Duke comes to mind, and
Oh, Jim Duke.
or Jim Duke. Sorry, my
Jim
bad.
Duke, Margie Flint, Rosemary Gladstar is like I've only done one herb walk with her, but it was amazing. So I have shelves of herbal books and people who I just adore.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel really grateful that I've had that blend of the science and the energetic herbalism and the traditional herbalist perspective as well. And I try my best to blend them together and to give everyone a really diverse yet integrated herbal studying experience.
Yeah, absolutely. You get that. That is exactly what you'll get if you sign up for Ashley's program, which I encourage you to do. If this is the kind of thing that interests you, you won't regret it. It's a fantastic course with someone I absolutely love, obviously, but also like a really, truly fantastic human being and teacher of
Oh,
plant medicine.
thank
And
you.
if you want to learn more about her, see her work, get to know her a little bit, check out her YouTube channel, Skyhouse Herbs, where she publishes weekly on plant medicine, plant energetics, and also on Instagram, which is Skyhouse Herbs. So the apprenticeship program starts April 24th. I wanted to get Ashley on, brag about her program, turn you guys on to it. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, I'm sure that we're going to see some people from the Nightlight astrology world getting introduced to you and all of your magic.
I would love that. Thank you.
All right, take it easy, everyone. Bye.